to take on the responsibility of taking this tremendous thing. Imagine going to Eretz Canaan, and a place you've never been before, and spying out the land, right? There's only 12 individuals, right? And you're going into a place for 40 days, 40 nights. It's supposed to journey throughout the whole land at the risk of life. What are you supposed to do? You had to obviously be qualified, and they were qualified. But yet, as the Mesilas Yesharim says, because they had an idea, they had a certain personal bias, right, for prestige, right, they eventually were unsuccessful. Because as Mesilas Yesharim explained, Al Pi Chazal, that they understood that when Klal Yisrael would come, when Jewish people would come from the Midbar to Eretz Yisrael, their positions would be reduced. They would have a reduction in their position. Now they're going to see them. They were high echelon. They were high-ranking people in the strata of Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people. When they would come to Eretz Yisrael, other people would take over from them. That they could not accept. And we shouldn't think that that's what's so difficult about that. It's a very, very difficult thing. The Steinberg's Shiva used a Gemara in Menachos to explain the point. Of Yeshua ben Prachia, he was the Rosh Yeshiva. Yeshiva at the time of Chazal, the Tanoim, the Amoraim, it's a Gemara. And he said about himself, he said that before he had become the Rosh Yeshiva, if someone would suggest to him the idea of becoming Rosh Yeshiva, he would have tied that person down and put a lion in front of him to eat him up. He would have tied the person down in front of a lion. If someone would suggest he becomes the Rosh Yeshiva, he would have tied a person down who suggested that in front of a lion, to be consumed by a lion. He said after he had taken the Messias, after he became the Nasi, the Rosh Yeshiva, if someone would suggest to him he step down, he would pour boiling water over his head. This is Yeshua ben Prachia. He would pour boiling water over the person's head. And he said, the Gemara goes right. He said, I'll bring you a proof. I'll bring you proof that what I'm saying is true. He said, Shaul HaMelech, right? Shaul HaMelech. This is what it means. He brought his own proof from Shaul HaMelech. It was very difficult for Shaul to accept the situation that David was going to take over from him. Okay? Very, very difficult. To step down is a very difficult thing. You know, until a person actually is in such a situation, you don't know. As the Shiva once also said, he said, Shlomo Melech said, Hevel Havol, I call heaven. You look at the world, everything is vanity of vanities. Hevel is like what comes out of your mouth. And Hevel Havol is, it's even further away. This is vapor. He said, look, the world is vapor. He said, only Shlomo Melech could say such a thing like that and be believed. You know why? Because he had everything. He had wealth. He had prestige. He had kingdom. He had everything. A person who has everything and says it's nothing, you can believe him that it's nothing. But a person who says that he doesn't have it, and he says it's nothing, so he's just talking off the top of his head. Right? He's not speaking about anything mamushes. He's not speaking out of reality. Shlomo Melech is talking about reality. From his own experience, he's telling you. I call Hevel Havol. So likewise, when Yeshua ben Prachia was explaining that, take a look at my situation. I can't step down. It's impossible for me to step down. Rabbi Yusuf Salanter explained the situation was as follows. This is what the Rosh Steinberg explains further based on this Gemara. That, for example, if you take a person who has middle-class person and give him wealth and position, right? You ask him after he's been established into the position, you feel any different? He says, well, it's like this and like that, but I'm basically, he'll say, the person's going to claim I'm basically the same person. Right? The truth is not that way. The truth is, the person's changed drastically. There's been a drastic change in the person, but since the person is biased because of his desire for honor, right, he doesn't sense it. The danger of gaiva, right, as what Rashi explained, Rabbi Yusuf Salanter, the danger of gaiva is a person doesn't sense it. A person is immune to his own feeling of gaiva. So we don't feel it, we don't realize it. That's how we understand what happened to the Meraglim. The Meraglim, they understood that the situation would be different when they came into Eretz Yisrael. And that, in what we call a subconscious way, they couldn't accept. They couldn't accept that. So therefore, anything that they saw in Eretz Yisrael, they misinterpreted it. Right? You look at the Rashis, you look at the Sfornim, the question wasn't exactly what they saw. They saw what they saw, but their interpretation was biased. That's what we many times have to always question ourselves. Everyone sees more or less the same thing, right? But it's our interpretation of what we see. Obviously, is it glass half full, half empty? That's the obvious thing which we already know about, right? It's much more subtle when you're dealing with things which are not exactly half full or half empty. Something which, what is it exactly, right? Our bias affects ourselves. And this is something which is enlightening in the following way, that if the Torah is telling us what happened to Meraglim, right, it's certainly on very high levels of accomplishment. Certainly for people that are not on such high levels of accomplishment, we have to be concerned about this so much more ourselves. So everybody wants to be successful in life. Everybody wants that they should, have the things that make their life comfortable, that they'll be able to do the things that are right. Right? These are the basic motivations of people. The Vilna Gaon says in the Sefer of Mishlema that the person is motivated what he calls the Ratzon HaRishon, which I would say that's like his prime motivating desire, his most subconscious, most unconscious desire. The question is, what is that? Right? Person trying to think about his situation in this life. What are we really after? If we think about what are we doing in this world, right? Which is the beginning of the Sefer Mesilas Yesharim. What's your obligation in this world? So he says clearly, right, to be you want to get benefit from the pleasure that the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to give you, primarily in the next world, right? But a person who does the Ratzon Hashem in this world, right, he can have a lot of pleasure, right, in a very basic way, he can lead a very good life, with a lot of basic enjoyment, simply by doing the Ratzon Hashem. So if this is our basic understanding of what we're supposed to be doing in this life, if that's because again, people may most likely be motivated by kinei taiva v'kavod, right? Those are the basic things that get people moving, right? So how do you temper these things, right? How do you know, right, to use the proper amount of salt and the proper amount of sugar and cinnamon, right? So if you want to just say, well, cinnamon looks red, I want it to be really red, so I'm going to put a couple of handfuls, in this recipe, right? So it'll look very red, but it's going to taste awful, right? So if you study how to use the spices when you're cooking, you'll be successful to make tasty dishes. Likewise, if you study, right, and that's why so often it's very important and so strongly suggested a person sits down with sparring like Mesilas Yesharim that teach you the basic things about what you have to know about life and teach you how to make the best out of life, right? This is something which is very relevant to us. And we see on the opposite side what happened to the Meraglim, right? They brought destruction to themselves, they brought destruction to their whole generation. They didn't come into Eretz Yisrael, right? Eretz Yisrael was left for the next generation to take over from.